bit of a joke on it being like a magic solution to everyone's problems. You're not going to find anything in this slides or anything that you probably not really heard before. It might just be a slightly different take on some basic stuff. Why we're doing this, I had a conversation with someone in the gym the other week, and it kind of highlighted to me that we don't do too much in terms of the nutrition side, because it's the hardest thing for us to really. We can tell you about these calories, and you should be eating this, and don't eat this, but it's quite a hard area for us to implement, where we can give you the tools, but actually people sticking to nutrition. This is why there's no real big study into what diet works, because we're so bad as humans at sticking to things. Like something will come up and then, but I had this big thing on the weekend, and I had this went out and this happened, and it's so hard to stick to something perfectly to definitively say that this is what works and this is what doesn't work. But what we can do is give you a great workout in the gym. We can make sure you're doing the right things there. It's super hard for us. It's always the thing we get the most pushback from people, or the bad feedback is that we didn't give people enough nutrition support, even if they have seen great results, funnily enough, in the gym. So also, like I said, earlier, like a bit of a disclaimer, like I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian. We're just personal trainers in the gym. We can't technically, from like a health and safety insurance perspective as well, like give nutrition. We can't prescribe nutrition. We can give you some information on things and say, this is what we recommend. That's why we use the InBody so much, in terms of like, this is the amount of calories you should be eating. Like the InBody is actually it's like a medical grade bit of kit. Like it's really good. It can obviously measure your muscle mass, see your body fat percentage, and off the back of seeing your muscle mass, give you a good like calorie target for you. So that's why we use it. Like the InBody says this. It's not I say this. It's the InBody says this. Right? There's no like magic bullet in here that you're gonna pick out and it's gonna change the world, or it might just be something that like triggers you a little bit. Sometimes like questioning you on some of your beliefs. If it's like something that does like flare something up, just kind of be aware of, why did I feel that way about that little bit of that thing that I said? Because there might be something behind that in terms of a cause that's leading to the problems that we're having around eating good quality vegetables and that sort of thing. So the aim of this is just to try and create some behavior change. So all these things, the nutrition side, it's all behaviors and habits, and trying to create like a healthy habits and everything. It's trying to change behavior at the end of the day. Like we have like environmental cues, we respond to it in certain ways, and they dictate our habits and our behaviors. And our habits and behaviors are the way we look. If we're in the habit of having a bag of crisps every night on the sofa with a glass of wine every night, we're probably going to struggle to shift some body fat, for example. Right. And then there's just some like basic principles in here, and just creating some self-awareness behind potentially some limiting beliefs, questioning our biases. The back of the questions that were asked to me that kind of spurred this on were off the back of a member saying, oh, but that's contains sugar, or but that's healthy fats. It's like, those are the things that are kind of stringing them up. They're the things that are holding them back from going, oh, but it's healthy fats. It's like justifying it to themselves almost. So just creating a bit of self-awareness around that, and also like become a student of all this. Like go and read books and educate yourselves on these things. Don't just take it from what I say. Like critically think about these things. There's so much information that goes out there on podcasts and other things. And the big one a couple of years ago was the Zoe patches. Remember, people were putting them on their arms, and it was on the Stephen Bartlett Diver CEO podcast. And then it came out about a month later that Stephen Bartlett was an investor in Zoe. So obviously it's just a big marketing thing. Like those podcasts are businesses at the end of the day. They're there to sell products, advertise services, create bait stuff that creates emotion and drives people towards their platform so they can get bigger guests on, so they can charge more money. They're businesses at the end of the day. What drives those is they are trying to sell you something. Obviously, in that case, it was the Zoe patches that loads of members went and bought after that. Right. So there are a few different like avenues when it comes to nutrition, like we sort of touched on earlier. It's more, for me, this is all around being like healthier and happier, right? For a lot of people, they kind of focus on the body composition element of this and not so much the performance element. Like I quite like performance goals. Like when I was obviously training for the ultra marathon start of the year, like you're on it more with your training, you're thinking about your nutrition a little bit more, and having that goal of I want to, even if it's like walk 5k or be able to do certain thing, those like performance goals and like landmark things are often more powerful in terms of like a goal perspective than I just want to lose a little bit of weight. Right, so it sometimes anchors people. This is why brides always use as a great example. They have a date in their mind. They've got like the massive anxiety around that big event, and that's what really drives them to see great results in the gym. If that's their sort of, if that's what their goal is. We had a guy last year saw fantastic results in a really short space of time, and his goal was he was about to take his kids away on holiday, and for the first time, and he didn't want to be the guy at the side of, or the dad at the side of the pool with his t-shirt on. He wanted to be able to get involved and get amongst it. And he did, that bit of anxiety in his head was really the thing that spurred him on. So those like performance goals and landmarks are always quite powerful. But it always comes back to like just being healthier, happier, because that's what really this all boils down to. Is generally what we want to achieve. When it comes down to like fitness, like for me, for those that don't know, like I was in the army before I set up Iceni. So being fit and healthy and active was obviously a big part of that. Like you have to be fit for your job. Like the life of someone else that I'm serving with and myself could be just dictated by how fit the person is next to you. And obviously that's a very extreme example of fitness and those sorts of things. But like if you needed to run away from something, God forbid you were in London or a tax or something, are you able to like sprint away from something? Are you able to get to safety? Are you able to, when I was on holiday on like a stag do, and some of the guys have got kids, and one of the things that they said that motivated them to train was so that like if their kids were running towards traffic, they could run over and be able to actually stop them from going into traffic, basically. So that's sort of like the motivation behind having more performance-based goals. Like, are you actually fit, strong, healthy, and able to be like useful as a human? That's kind of like my background behind it. There are a lot of transformation gyms and like online influencers that sort of crop up in the space. I'm not the biggest fan of them. Obviously that's because that's not the way I do things. What those gyms do is create like a massive like emphasis on, right, you're going to get loads of we're going to basically bully you for 12 weeks so that you see results. So it's basically more of like a foot on the throat mentality of, we're going to make you feel bad for going out. We're going to basically torture you. We're going to really push you in the gym. It's going to be really high intense workouts. It's going to be a lot of those sorts of like mentality around it. But what you're doing there is putting yourself into like an incubator, basically, where you will see good results, but as soon as that foot comes off the throat, you're just going to swing straight back in the opposite direction. And it creates like massive yo-yo effect, and not just in terms of like your weight and your body composition, but also mentally, because that yo-yo of failed, then it goes back on, and then you go back, and then you end up in this, we want to build some healthy habits that are maintainable and achievable, that you can live with at the end of the day. There's no point getting to a certain level of body fat percentage broken just for the sake of a picture that's unsustainable, and yeah, it's just not going to be a good, healthy way of doing things. It just sets unrealistic expectations for people. So, oh, why can't I achieve that within 12 weeks? So there's a lot more just behind the picture. You don't see results. For me, isn't just about the way you look. So this all comes down to, when it comes down to either like building strength, losing body fat, whether that's to put weight on or lose weight, it comes down to the basic principle of being in a calorie deficit. This is where the dyslexic comes out. So obviously it comes down to that principle of we've got to move more and eat less, right? Obviously that's the, someone wants to join. Janet. So obviously that's a very like simplified version of it. Obviously implementing that is the hard bit, right? Some people then go down like calorie restricted, time restricted eating. So going down the only eating within certain windows, the intermittent fasting. Trying to join again. So basically what you're doing there is just reducing the time down in which you have an eating window. What you can still do within that time is overconsume and just eat your calories just moving your calories to the left or to the right. What you're not doing is then making sure you're in a calorie deficit. If you do actually do it and you cut out a meal, what then becomes hard to do is hit like your protein target, your protein amounts that you need to be hitting to obviously build muscle or to get enough in to maintain your muscle while you're in a calorie deficit. And then we see a lot of like elimination diets. So I'm cutting out sugar or I'm cutting out carbs, and like to cut out sugar and carbs is like so hard because it's like within so much stuff. This is why tracking is, I believe, and it is so good. And we've seen so many people actually go down the route of it. And this is why we recommend it. Obviously, you don't have to track. There are other ways of doing it. You can just do meal prep services and just get all your meals delivered, and they'll be within your calories and macros, and it's just done. But obviously, that's a lot more expensive way of doing it. But when it comes down to actually tracking your food and seeing what is in certain stuff, just having the awareness of how many calories are in that little handful of nuts that I was having, that I thought was just like a little snack, and those all start to add up. It's not until you start, it just gives you that level of awareness of like what is actually in foods. And also, like I was saying, the elimination diet is just cutting things out, which obviously is just going to lead to a calorie deficit. So it all comes down to just those basic principles of we just need to make sure that we're burning more calories than we're consuming. Obviously, when we say about calorie targets, if you think of it like money and spending what you can spend over a month rather than just like on a daily spend, because you can have good days, bad days. It's just what you eat on average. If you kind of, right, you've got this much money to spend across a month, like most people get paid monthly, and you budget accordingly, right? You know you're going to go out of the weekend, so you don't spend all your money in the week. The same with your calories, right? If you know you've got a social event coming up at the weekend, you just make sure that, okay, right, I'm going to cut a few calories off a few days before, a few days after. What I'm not going to do is go, oh, sod it, undo all the hard work that you've done in the past few months by like having a blowout for a week, and then you're back to square one. And then this is where this yo-yo effect starts to happen. So just making sure that whatever your calorie target is, times that by 30, and then just budget accordingly, budget across a week, whatever sort of makes sense to you. Like I was saying earlier, the biggest thing is we hear, oh, but it's healthy fats. And the one that lady said was, like, isn't that sugar? It's like sugar isn't terrible for you. Obviously, there's like super refined sugar. When it comes down to like losing weight, a certain amount of sugar is obviously going to be too much, or we still need those things within our diets, whether it's from fruits and other things that will contain a certain amount of sugar. Probably if you're trying to be in a calorie deficit, a full fat Coke probably wouldn't be the way to go forward. Just be mindful of those things. Like sugar is in so much stuff, and when we go, I'm cutting out carbs, like, but I'm going to eat like breads and pastas, and that it's so just like broad as a statement, like going, I'm going to cut sugar out. It's like, is that all carbohydrates, or is that just like refined sugar? So people go by these principles, but I'm going to eat some healthy fats, but I'm going to cut sugar out. But it all comes down to the principle of we need to make sure that we are burning more calories than we're consuming at the end of the day. That's annoying. Can anyone see that book right there? Is that just like a white square? Right, there's a really good book by Peter Attia called Outlive. I'll chuck it in the notes or what have you after this. But it's basically, he's like a longevity specialist. He's a doctor, and the stuff that's in that book will really just like change your mindset on the nutrition side. It's far too overcomplicated, and people focus far too much on this side of the pyramid rather than just like the basics and the foundations of it. So if you've never seen this before, obviously the bits at the bottom are the foundations, the most important bits, and then these are obviously less important as we go up. So when it comes down to losing weight, we just need to make sure that we're base level is within our calories, right? Then we start looking at our macros, most importantly protein, that we're making sure we're eating enough protein. Normally around 30% of your calories coming from protein is a good marker to try and hit. Then above that is your micros. So are you getting enough veg? Are you getting enough vitamins and minerals in from your nutrition? Then above that, it's our nutrition quality, and then it's the timing. What we hear far too often is people are focusing on, I'm not losing weight because I eat after 9 o'clock. Right? For the past however long, like finishing late at the gym, I probably eat my dinner at about 9:30, within about half an hour to an hour of actually going to bed, and there's not been a problem, right? It comes down to the fact that I'm still within my calories, I'm eating enough protein, I'm getting the right stuff in. The timing's just like that, the icing on the cake. The only thing I will say around timing when you're in a calorie deficit is when you're going into a training session, making sure that you are fueled for your training session. If you're only eating, for example, 1,600 calories a day, and you're training in the evening and you've not trained or you've not eaten anything since lunch, coming in and trying to get a good effective workout in is going to be really hard. So you're better off taking some of, say, if you're splitting your so if you split your calories evenly throughout the day, you're probably better off taking some of the carbohydrates out of your evening meal, having them before you go into the gym and train in the evening, and being able to have a better workout, lift heavier weights, which is going to encourage you to burn more calories, build more muscle, and you'll get more of a stimulus and adaptation from your workout than you would do just going in fasted, depleted, and just kind of going in and ticking the box. You're better off going into a gym session fueled, but now to have a great session. It's also going to even enjoy it a lot more because you're not just like dizzy halfway through a workout. You're going to get a much better time in the gym, and as a result, you'll get better training response from your training. So that's one of the biggest things that we sort of was highlighted to me, even though I kind of know that when I was training for the ultra with Ollie, like my runs, but I burn so many more calories when I'm training than Ollie, just because I hold more muscle mass. So I had to eat over the course of that run about 3 times as much as Ollie, it seemed. I didn't seem to stop eating. He kind of like floated around on a rice cake. And yeah, it was a big highlight for me in terms of how much energy I had to have to get through that. And same with when people are in a calorie deficit. If you want to get a good workout in, make sure that you're going into those sessions having had some fuel, whether that's like half a banana, some fruit juice is fine. Like people say, oh, that's blood sugar, but like that is what you're going to use within your training. Having some carbohydrates the closer you get towards training, the simpler the carbohydrates, the further away, the more complex you can have. So like fruit juice, a banana within like 30 minutes to an hour before training, is your blood sugars are going to come up. You're going to burn straight off when you go into the gym. They're not then going to store those as energy, and it's literally like almost like free calories. So they go in, you burn them straight off, you get the response. And I'm not saying that they're free, don't quote me on that. You still got to track them, because you're still going in, you've still got to use them, but they're a lot more effective than just having them here and there. So structuring, the only thing that I'd say around timing is like that's the most important thing when you come down to being the calorie deficit. Like we touched on earlier, people get caught up on the nutrition quality. You can lose weight and go to McDonald's 3 times a day. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but as long as it's within your calories and you're burning more calories, then you're still going to see weight loss, as just like a basic principle done over a long enough time period. That's the big thing with this. It doesn't just happen in a week. It doesn't happen in a month. You've got to do this for long enough, which is why do this in a manner that allows you to do it long term. By going far too low on your calories, it's just impossible. And we see it all the time. People go, I'm going to eat 1,200 calories, and then they just crash and burn within weeks. It's just unsustainable. And then you end up with like I'm only going to track on a weekend, and then I'm only going to track on a weekday, then I'm not going to track on the weekends. And then you end up with this massive yo-yo of emotion that goes behind this. So calories, I don't know if anyone's seen this before, but this is this represents your daily energy expenditure. So 75% of the calories that you burn day to day comes from your basic metabolic rate. So the amount of muscle mass you have will dictate this. The majority of this, obviously hormones and stuff come into play with this as well. But the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn day to day. This is why strength training is it's close to like that golden bullet as you're going to get in terms of what you should be doing in the gym, because it increases the amount that you burn day to day. If you've got a bit more muscle mass and your muscles are working harder for you outside of the gym, you're going to burn so many more calories day to day. What people do is they go to the gym and they just focus on burning calories. What you burn during training and exercise is 5% of what you actually burn. This is obviously on average. The rest comes from your NEAT, so the non-exercise energy thermogenics that you burn from just moving throughout the day. So typically we talk about steps. 15% of your energy comes from the amount of steps you do throughout the day. And when we say like your NEAT and your steps, people say, but I walk the dog. It's like that, but that's typically up until like for the past sort of 10, 15 years, that's been just like day-to-day life. Like walking the dog, taking that doesn't necessarily make you, I'm really active. Like that should just be what we used to do. We're so sedentary now that walking the dog is now like a big thing. Like if we can just move more throughout the day, this is why getting your steps up is such a powerful thing. I might have told you this in your consultation, or if I've not taken you through a consultation, this is what the story I always say is I had a client that I used to PT before we used to do small group PT, and I used to train him 3 times a week, and for love nor money, he was following nutrition. He was following a good diet. We were training 3 times a week in the gym, and we were really struggling to see results. His family had the plumbing contract for Stansted Airport. They still do. And he basically used to get in his car, drive to work, sit in an office, drive around site because Stansted's so big, and then do the reverse on the way back home via the gym 2 or 3 times a week. His energy expenditure was so small that it didn't matter how many times he went to the gym. It was because this was so small, he really struggled to see that weight loss. He then there was like a change in contract or something, and he was like on site a lot more. He went from doing, when we calculated it, it was about 3,000 steps a day on average, and he went from doing that to around 15,000 steps a day, and the weight fell off him. He didn't change his training. If anything, was training less because he was busier at work. He was still following the nutrition, but he was just increasing his step count. Right? The steps is such a powerful thing for what you do day to day. Right? And people ask me, what is the magic number with steps? It's just, are you losing weight? Yes or no? If you're not, do more steps. If you are, fantastic. You don't have to be doing vast amounts of steps to lose weight if you're in a good calorie deficit. But this obviously helps. The rest of the calorie burn comes from your digestion, so the thermic effects of food. So when you eat protein, when you have more protein in your diet, you burn more calories, right? You burn, I probably have got the data point on that, but you burn a lot more calories from eating protein than you do carbohydrates and fats. So just by eating more protein in your diet, you're increasing the amount of energy that you burn every single day. To back up this calorie deficit thing, there are now such things as GLP-1s, which basically suppress your appetite. We've seen a few people, I won't mention any names, that have seen like fantastic results from taking GLP-1s on the scales. The long-term effects on them, I'm not educated on it enough or qualified enough to comment on that thing. But if they basically, one of the people that has recently lost quite a lot of weight, what mum was saying, lost about 30 kilos worth of weight and maintained the majority of his muscle mass because he's been strength training 3 times a week while doing it. But this has basically meant that he's in such a calorie deficit that the weight's fallen off him. Right? You don't have to take these to be in a calorie deficit. These just make you so repulsed by the look of food that it just puts you into that calorie deficit out of just necessity, really. You just can't stomach food to the extent of when you're not on them. So if it's a medical reason like what he experienced, that's why he was prescribed them, and yeah, he's seen fantastic results. Now, some people have, it's a bit of a taboo thing, and it's sort of triggered a lot of people's response to it. And if that's someone's health there at the end of the day and they're doing it for those sorts of reasons, then absolutely fine. Like, in my opinion, like, there's nothing wrong with it. He's not breaking the law. He's not doing anything immoral. He's not hurting anyone else. It's for his health and his body at the end of the day. That's, in my opinion, absolutely fine. Right. But all this does is sort of back up the fact that when you are in a calorie deficit, when you don't eat as much and you continue to move more, the only sort of drawback when it comes to training is obviously you're in such a calorie deficit that it's really hard to come in and get an effective workout. And that's where the nutrition timing of having something, even if it's just like a little bit of fruit juice before you come in and train, can then obviously allow you to still have a good workout. One big factor, like I sort of mentioned earlier, when it comes down to results, is our environment. So this is why joining a gym or community of people that are doing things that you want to do is really important. Not saying that you have to necessarily join Iceni, but you can get this element of environment from a walking club, an online platform, or anything. But your environment shapes our habits and behaviors, and therefore our results. The environment, I'm like quite hot on, and creating, like, this is why, like, creating Iceni being like a accepting space where people feel comfortable and they come in and they train and they can do things properly, and they don't feel intimidated and they want to actually go and train, is so important, because then the environment yields the results. If you enjoy going there, you're going to stick to it for longer, and then by sticking to it for longer, you're going to see better results. You might not be savvy with this, or might not have heard this story before, or this study. So there was a study done on US soldiers during the Vietnam War. So they found out that 20% used heroin regularly while deployed. And obviously they were really worried that when all these heroin users and addicts went back to the US, they were going to introduce thousands of people that were hooked on heroin back into US society. So, but what they found was 90% of those people who are addict or addicted stopped using when they returned home because the environment changed. Right, so you have environmental trigger. After work, we go to the pub, we take heroin, and then when they came home, those environmental cues disappeared, and lo and behold, 90% of the people that were addicted stopped using. Right, so that's how powerful the environment change was on those people, and that's funnily enough, that's the opposite of the stats of people that relapse after going to like rehab facilities. So it'd be funny to see like the stats on people who go to transformation gyms when they come out of the transformation gym, what the relapse rate when they go back to their normal sort of situation. Right, so 90% of people that go to rehab facilities relapse back into doing what they were doing because they just go back into their old environments. They have, when you're the Atomic Habits book, which is on the desk in the gym, explains this better than I will. But when you have like a bad habit, it's still a behavioral loop. Whether it's good or bad is just subjective. It still works in the same way. So you have an environmental cue, there's a loop in your head, and then you have a behavioral response. So if you remove yourself from the environment, you no longer have that cue, but the loop is still there in your head. You've created that behavioral loop through reinforcement, that's circuitry, because the behavioral, or you obviously the reward was the heroin, the reward is the food. You get a dopamine spike, it's rewarding, I like it, it then reinforces that loop. So that's why your environment is so important on these things. And so if you can get things out of the house, it's just controlling that environment. If you find that you snack a lot, then removing those snacks from the your environment is probably the best way of avoiding temptation, because if they're not there, we're not going to use them. Now, this is why I didn't want this to be like too heavy on like stats and figures and education side of things, because what typically happens in these webinars and what have you is we get bombarded with loads and loads and loads of information, but there's no, because learning is in like a school sense, is they give you some information and you can just regurgitate it in a test, right? It's not necessarily learning new behaviors. You're not creating actual change. You're not actually creating actual change by not doing anything about it. We can memorize all these facts, but if we don't create changes, then it doesn't matter, right? We have to actually go away and implement these things. Now, you don't have to do this right now. You can just think about it. But I want you to write down your goals, right? Whether you do that now or when we get off this chat. But simply by writing your goals down, you are 42% more likely of achieving them. Some studies went away and did it. But by probably one test study didn't write down their goals, one sample actually wrote them down. But just by writing down and thinking like, right, what weight number do I want to get to? What body fat percentage do I want to get to? And having like getting out of your head, and just by putting it on paper and going, right, this is what good looks like, this is where I want to go, is really, really powerful. Now, I do it personally. I do like personal goals, professional goals, and physical goals. For me, a bit of a tangent this, but that I like breaking them down into these goals. Obviously, these are more like physical goals. If we're in this sort of context, for us, we want to get to this dress size, we want to get my biceps to however big, but for guys and ladies, we like big biceps too. And then just making them part of your environment. Again, like, this is why the environment is so important. So if we can create environmental cues that remind ourselves of the goals. I had the van as my screensaver on my phone for months and months and months and months and months before I got the van. Like, it makes you just aware of it. It creates the environmental stimulus of, oh, reminds me of it. I've got to make sure I've saved the money so that I can get that thing. I've got to make sure that every time you open your phone, you're reminded. If you can create that as like your screensaver, or you can put something at home, or something if you sit down, like I've got goals and stuff above my monitor here of things that like I want to achieve. And if you can create that within it's the same reason why when you research buying a car or something, all you can see, like if you research buying a car, all you can then see, you're just reminded, and you can see those cars all over the place. Like then they've still been driving around. Now you've just tuned into them. So it's like that circuitry in your brain. If you can make your goals part of your like day-to-day life, or revisit them weekly and sit down, put it in your calendar and go, right, this is when I'm going to sit down and like revisit my goals and think about them, you're going to be even more likely of achieving them. So that's a big one, and I really like that, and it works for me. And then just monitoring your progress. So getting on the InBody regularly, how are you actually quantifying what success looks like, and then making miles, like working your way backwards from that. Right, to get to there by this date, I need to lose 2 kilos per month. Am I on track? Yes or no? Right. Actually having some data points to this is really important. Like money in business is obviously like a good frame of reference that I kind of use. But if you're having some data to things, if we don't track our calories, how do we know that we're eating enough or eating too much? If we don't know how many steps we're doing, how do we know if we're moving enough or not moving enough? Right? Otherwise, it's just like a feeling. If we can actually have some numbers to thing, it becomes less subjective. And obviously, tracking is as good as you can track. Obviously, scanning a barcode and going, oh, I had a handful, that's must be 50 grams. You can track what you think is there, but actually doing the work and measuring some stuff out and creating those sorts of entries into like a food diary in MyFitnessPal is what's going to really allow you to see, am I eating enough? Am I eating too much? I suggest just starting and just putting in what you generally having in a day, doing a few days, seeing what you actually eat. And just by doing that, you're probably going to start being more aware of it, and you just start dialing in and making better decisions anyway. I'm not the biggest fan of tracking. I prefer planning. This is a bit of self-awareness, is I hate tracking calories. But what I have done and what works for me is like creating a meal plan that I can stick to. I'm really good at following a plan. But what you have to do is create a plan for yourself. You have to, whether that's using ChatGPT, like I sort of mentioned at the start, or tracking. And then once you've tracked for a week, you've got a recipe plan, and all you do is follow recipes then. And once you've tracked a week and you know that's within your calories, you can just then keep repeating that week. You don't have to track it. Like for me, I know that 2 salmon fillets, a pack of rice and some broccoli is going to be a good lunch for me, or a good dinner. Like a chicken breast with a medium-sized sweet potato and some veg is going to be a good meal. Once you've done this enough, you create that muscle, and you know what roughly a good meal looks like. You know that, okay, good breakfast for me is 6 eggs, 2 slices of toast. Right? Don't need to track that every single time I put it in. If you eat quite similarly, like you don't have to track forever. You just kind of have to do it for long enough so that you create the meal plans and the recipes in your head or however you choose to do it, and then you just repeat it. Then you're just planning. So if you actually plan what you're going to eat out in a week, you write it all down, that becomes your food shop. Then all you do is go on to Tesco online, you order it and order your food. That's what I recommend, because you don't walk around the shop when you're hungry and pick up loads of other stuff that you don't need. When you go have dinner and then sit down and create a food plan for yourself for the week, and then go away and order it. Obviously, if you have to go to the shop, go to the shop. And whether you do that on a bit more of an ad hoc basis, but just doing like a food shop, the amount of times I sit down people and they're just so like ad hoc, okay, I'm just going to grab something here and grab something there, and like they're just not planning ahead. Like, I know what I'm going to have to eat tomorrow. I know that because I'm starting early. I'm going to have like a protein shake with some frozen berries, scoop of protein powder in there because it's a convenient option. If I was at home, I'd probably have some Greek yogurt or some eggs. And it's within my calories. I've had that shake so many times over the past 10 years. I dread to think how many times I've had it with starting early in the gym. But I just know that, and I still weigh it out every single time I make it. I never eyeball it, because our eyes are really bad at knowing like how much peanut butter to put in. So I only had a little bit of peanut butter. It's like, but what is a little bit? Like, so many of these things are driven by like your perspective of things. It's like, oh, I don't eat too much. But how do we know that we don't eat too much? It's just like a feeling. We're not talking in terms of numbers. So trying to like plan. I went off a little bit there, but planning is so much better than tracking, because tracking is always in retrospect. Planning ahead, creating some meal plans and just sticking to it, I find is so much easier to stick to. For me, Gemma, she tracks everything. And so she puts everything into MyFitnessPal, but she's already kind of planned it ahead of time, if that makes sense. All she's doing is just entering it in as she goes, just to make sure that she's on and she's in her calories. And in terms of like her, like the complexity of her meals, like they are super simple. If you see Gemma have lunch, it's boiled rice, chicken, and veg with some seasoning on there, salt and pepper, maybe some hot sauce or something on there as well. Make it taste nice. Like, it's not boring. It's nice, good, nutritious food. It's within her calories, and she preps it at the start of the week. Same as myself. It's just simple things done consistently, and we just overcomplicate it far too often. Now, I really like inversion theory. So when it comes down to like achieving goals, especially when like weight loss or whatever you're trying to achieve, inversion theory is flipping it on its head. Rather than thinking of what do I need to do to achieve it, flip it on its head and go, right, to ensure that I 100% would not achieve my goal, what would I do? All right, if I was going to try and lose weight, I probably wouldn't track my calories. I wouldn't go to bed on time. I'd go to bed at whatever time. Wouldn't get my 8 hours in or 7 hours. I would sit and play video games rather than getting my steps in. I'd have too much alcohol throughout the week, which is going to affect my sleep. If you create a list of all those things that would negatively impact you getting towards your goals, you can cut as many of those out as you can. It's a really like good shift in terms of like your thinking when it comes to obviously achieving them. You don't have to do that one. That's a bit of an in-depth one, but if you want, like, sit down and go through that list and go, right, if that's my goal, what have I got to do to get there, and then check as many of those off as you can. We see this happen far too often as well. So the power follows the blame finger. So when it comes down to achieving our goals, we want to take ownership of it. Like, at the end of the day, we are responsible. We're all adults. We are responsible for our results, right? By taking ownership of it, you have the power, right? And we always want the power, right? If we blame something else, we're giving the power to that other thing, right? I couldn't go to the gym because of the traffic, right? Or it's too far, or it's too hard work tracking calories. I'm not, I can't do that because like it's hard work, and I don't want to do that forever. Like we put up these like barriers and point the finger of blame other things that are not within us because we don't want to take ownership of it. And we obviously want to take the power. The more you can take ownership of it, you realize that it's something that you can control, then you're going to see better results. Trying to waffle on too much because we've been going for a while. Behavior change. So a guy that I know, his brother's a psychologist and works with like quite high up directors and CEOs of like O2 and businesses like that. And he did a really good presentation to a group of gym owners on this behavioral change curve. So when we start off with our like fitness journey, we have this thing called like uninformed optimism, where we're super pumped up, we're going for it, we've started at the gym, like I've bought some new running trainers, we've bought a new outfit, we're all optimistic at the start, and then we kind of get into the going and actually doing the thing, and then we have this thing called informed pessimism, where we realize that it's actually quite hard and you've got to get there 3 times a week and there's traffic and I've got to carve out the time. And then we have this downside. Now, I'd heard this before, but it's been explained to me. If anyone's got like an elastic band to handle, like a hair tie, put a hair tie around your back, and this is like pulling the elastic band away. The more pain, or like, pain's probably a bit more of like an aggressive way of phrasing this, but the more like you can cut away, the more sacrifice that you have to go through, the higher the upside. Right? It's like a catapult. The more you can pull back, the better results you're going to get. Now, you can either go through this, and what people end up doing is quitting, and then they crash and burn, and then they just go back through this cycle every January, and they, oh, this year's going to be different, and then they go through this uninformed optimism stage, even though they're slightly informed, but it's different. It's different this time. And then they get into the groove of it again, and then they get, oh, but I'm not really willing to make those sacrifices. They crash and burn, and then they just go through that loop. What you can do is, as we're going through this, realize this is the hard work. This is all like the reps and everything that goes into creating this behavior change. And this is saying no to the social events after work. This is the when you are out, making a better choice with your nutrition, having an alcohol-free beer instead of the beer that you actually want. This is all those little decisions that add up. There's getting to the gym when you don't want to go to the gym, when you're tired because you're in a calorie deficit. The more you can sacrifice, the more, like the bigger the upside return, basically. But what is absolutely fine in all of this, and this is what I do say to people in the consultations as well, quite often, is it's absolutely fine to not pull as hard back on this band as you think you want to, and kind of go, actually, rather than getting to here, I'm actually happy getting to here. Like, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm able to do socially what I want to do. Is it really worth sacrificing all the relationships with all your friends, losing, like, relationships can disappear during this time in order to get to this person? Because that's what kind of has to happen sometimes. Like, you will piss people off by not going out for a beer and those sorts of things in order to get to here. Now, and it's absolutely fine to go, actually, I don't want to look like Arnold. I'm actually happy here on the curve. And then this happens, like, this is obviously quite an abbreviated version of it. It's not just a simple down and up. It's more of a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up as you do the reps. This was quite it's quite an aggressive way of thinking when it comes to behavior change, because you have to like go from being one person to another person. Like, your behaviors and actions and everything have to change, which is why it's so hard in terms of changing like who you are. I know that's quite an aggressive way of thinking, and my uncle is a clinical psychologist, and I asked him about this. So I went, obviously, talking to typically people in a business setting are going to be a bit more motivated around certain stuff. People, when it comes down to like identity change, is a lot more daunting. And he recommended this book by Oliver Burkeman, which is called Meditations for Mortals. Now, this is it's only like a couple of hour listen to, or it's a really short book. But this was actually, even like for myself, in terms of goals and stuff that I set for myself, it was like a really good frame for thinking it's all about not being a perfectionist and being an imperfectionist, because we don't start the diet because we don't think we'll be able to stick to it 100% of the time. So we just never actually start doing the thing, or we never complete the task because we're a perfectionist of how it's going to end. So it's allowing yourself, understanding your limitations. Like I was saying earlier, I hate tracking, but I'm quite good at sticking to a plan. So for me, tracking nutrition isn't the one, but I can create a food diary that I can, or a food plan that I can stick to. It's understanding your limitations and knowing that you're not going to be perfect in any of this. Like, you are going to have days where you probably eat a little bit more than you should do. And it's giving yourself the license to, like, perfection is an illusion. You just kind of got to keep going with it, and like stop putting off starting tracking because you're waiting for like the perfect time or the perfect conditions to start. The amount of times that I've had phone calls with people and they're like, okay, I really want to start the 30-day program, but I'm going away over that weekend that's like halfway through it. I'm like, what? Like, when was the last time you had 30 days that were absolutely perfect, where you didn't have anything socially on, that gives you enough time to start doing it? You've just kind of got to get going. It's never going to be perfect, and this has got to be like habits that ingrain and like kind of stay with you for a life, hopefully, or at least for the long term. So the hardest point is now, and it's just getting going. And this book was really, really good at kind of framing that, of not being a perfectionist and allowing yourself the right to not get it completely right all the time. So that was a big shift. And when I spoke to my uncle about it, obviously he deals with like the clinically insane, so treating people who are like top level in like mental institutions and trying to get them to do some level of behavior change. So it's obviously, that's a very extreme version of that. So yeah, that and the Peter Attia book, I'll see if it loads now. No, it's not going to load. Is a big like mindset shift. Now, this is why I've been like a lot hotter on like the mindset side of this, because a lot of these habits and whatever you come down from like our perspective of things and having a shift in mindset over these things. And we've basically got to get out of our own way half the time when it comes to these things. There's another really good book called The Mountain Is You. It's like the only thing that stands between you and what you want to achieve is ourselves. The mindset thing is obviously like a big part of this. People think that you have to be absolutely obsessed. Now, to look like that, you do have to be absolutely obsessed with this, right? For the vast majority of us, we don't want to look like Arnold, but we think if I start eating a little bit more protein, I'm going to look like him. Right? The amount of times that I've had a conversation with someone that they've said, I don't want to get too bulky. It's like, one, we don't produce anywhere near as the amount of testosterone that this guy was taking, never mind just to look like that. The amount of sacrifice that goes into to get into that sort of level of physique is insane. And just by lifting weights a couple of times a week, we're not going to end up like that, right? Life is more for living, right? I'm a big believer in that. Life's too short to like cut calories and not do the things that you want to do, then just for the sake of looking a certain way. Right? It might be for you, but for the vast majority of us, practicing some healthy habits and it's sometimes when we go into like a weight loss thing or building some muscle, it's like it's just a season. So think of it as like when we talk about balance, and balance is always this area that people talk about, how this balanced lifestyle. Like when we're trying to create change, you have to skew the scales in a certain direction to get a shift in a certain direction. So if you want to see a big change physically, you probably are going to have to let other things slide. They won't be as important, but that's the whole point. Like we've got to sacrifice some things in order to, but it's only for a season. Like people think, oh, I can't track. They think they're going to have to track forever. I've tracked in the past. I've followed nutrition plans in the past, but it's not forever. Once you're there, it's a lot easier to maintain a level of physique or goals and where you're at than it is getting there, because you have to go through the hard stuff. I sometimes say to some people that it's easier to ride a bike faster than it is to go really slow. Like if you're kind of like teetering around with some of this, I'm doing this, but I'm not doing that. Sometimes for us, it's sometimes just easier to just really focus in for a short amount of time, 90 days, 30 days, give yourself a few months, right? And just have that like cut off, right? No matter what, I'm just going to really focus on this for a short amount of time. And you'll see much better results from committing to it and going for it than you will do by like half-arsing it and not really fully committing to it. You'll get there, and then you can start to then practice like what we call maintenance, where you do get to eat a little bit more and it's a lot more fun. And then you can actually start to live. But what you will end up doing, like I wrote an email out that went out the other week and said that I gained a little bit of weight over the summer. Right, you are going to have like peaks and troughs. If you put on a couple kilograms, just know that you can dial it back in, because you know you've been through that hard work before, or you know you've got to dial it back in for a couple of weeks and you'll get back down. Right, it's just knowing that, okay, you put an extra couple kilograms on. Oh, it's the end of the world. I'm going to sack this off. What's the point? I'm not going to the gym anymore. Sod the diet, and we end up with, then you end up skewed and 6 months away from where you actually want to be again. So it's giving yourself like the license that you are going to fluctuate a little bit. That's just life. You will skew and have more fun over the summer sometimes, and that's absolutely fine. If that's what you've looked like for the majority of the summer, well done. That's what you're supposed to do. Any questions? Hopefully that covered quite a lot of things. But if you want to unmute yourself, I'll unshare this screen if I can figure out how to do that. Yep. Any questions? No?
Not from us.
Never is, Jan. It's always the same with presentations.
Yeah. You're tired now.
Yeah.
You know, leave me alone.
No, I think it's like a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And having done it for a while, I've not tracked anything. Simple as that. So I think I'm going to have to jump in and try and do it. But I'm not one for taking. I took notes from a business life all the time. I don't want to take notes now.
Yeah. But then just try that like planning. Right? Okay, how much? Say you got a goal of arbitrary number, 150 grams of protein a day. Like, what does that look like? Does that look like 4 eggs in the morning, your protein bar after your training? What's the size of protein you got to have with your lunch? What's the size of protein you got to have with your dinner? And then just stick to that. You don't have to track that. If your goal is to hit your protein every day, just know that, right, these 5 things equate to the right, or these 3 meals I've got the right amount of protein in it for me, and just stick to that. You don't have to track it.
I think the interesting thing for me, Jan, is just that all through my business life, it's always been goals, challenges, issues, this, that, and whatever. And now that's not there. I've now got to adapt that to. So I need to do goals. I've got a bit bored with goals, and everything else. I need to get reinvigorated to actually set myself some goals and do that again.
Then maybe like the performance goals is a better thing for you.
Could
Like,
be. Could be.
rather than like a body composition thing, maybe you go, I'd like to go on this walking holiday and do this thing, or maybe something like that. I'd like to be able to cycle from this point to this point. I want to
be driving fast cars.
yeah,
That doesn't help. So, no, I think you're right there.
maybe try like a bit of a performance goal.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you.
That's I find them so much better than like I want to be X whatever body fat percentage.
Yeah, it's pretty pointless. Well, for me, for others, no.
Yeah.
I mean, planning is probably the thing, because having Lidl just round the corner is not helpful because you don't plan. I'll just wander around there and go and get dinner.
Yeah,
Or
and then you pick up a few other things when you're there, don't you?
chocolate raisins.
Chocolate coffee beans that you got tonight.
So then I have to work even harder.
Yeah.
And it's not the right food.
Yeah, but I think if you're hitting your protein, like depending on like what your goal is, like,
yeah,
do you really want to sacrifice the things to get to that next level of what it is?
I mean, one of the biggest. I hardly ever drink now.
Yeah,
but then I'm not missing them.
Yeah.
And Guinness Zero is a great thing.
Yeah, and you still get to drive.
That's the thing, because everywhere you go, you've got to drive. Guinness Zero is great, but I think I'll just have a rethink and a focus on a couple of things. Yeah.
Anyone else got anything they'd like to ask? Hopefully that presentation was so good we covered everything and you've got.
I think that's what it is. It was very good.
It was good. Yeah,
it was very good. It's almost stuff that you know, but you just need it sort of enforced. Really, don't you? You do everything you said. Everything you said, I think I'm pretty much aware of, but it's just hearing it again and getting it in there.
And in those books have got good pointers as well, aren't they? Having things like that. So
yeah, it's just like education. Like I say, it's like environment. It's surrounding yourself. The more you're thinking about this, the more it becomes part of like your life. And you want to become a fit, healthy person. You don't just want to look a certain way for a photo shoot and then that's it. Like, we want to become fit, healthy people, and educating ourselves on what is good nutrition, what sort of exercise should I be doing. Don't just take it from someone who's trying to sell you something.
I've been
Sorry?
I've been tracking for the past month roughly, and done quite well. Lost about half a stone, but I was massively under eating protein. I didn't realise actually how much it looked like. I was I'm for about 140, and lucky if I was hitting 70, and that's made a huge difference because I just feel fuller.
Yeah. The protein's such an under, like, we don't even my brain's starting to switch off now. Like, it's such an undervalued part of the puzzle. Like we sort of had the conversation the other day, like, just by eating more protein you burn more calories. It keeps you fuller, and especially when you are in a calorie deficit. And we want to do everything we can do to protect our muscle mass, because it does so much more for us in the long term. Like, the longevity thing is all based around, right, how strong are you and what's your VO2 max, which is just a posh way of measuring your fitness. That will dictate the quality of your life far more than your body fat percentage will ever say. Like, can you actually get around and do the things you want to do as we get older? Like, that's what ultimately what we want. There's no point like battering ourselves in the gym, and like, especially I can say myself, like, after having like a pretty big knee operation, there's no point in me doing crazy heavy back squats and stuff like that, and trying to lift crazy weights and do those things if it's just going to mean that I have to have a knee operation later on down the line. Like, your muscle mass is like one of the most valuable things that you have, and it's one of the things that unfortunately does like lead to a lot of mortality when people do have like long stints in hospital. It's with the biggest killer. Is that and that's what really highlights that he mentions lots of stats in that Outlive book by Peter Attia. That's like one of the biggest things when people do come out of hospital. It happened to my grandma. We were going to go to Ducks for Their Museum because there's a Lancaster bomber there, which is what my granddad flew in. And the night before we were supposed to go there, she tripped over a phone charger that she had in the living room, broke her hip, and then after that, like, she spent so long in hospital, and then her mobility massively decreased after that, and then it was within a year that she passed away after that. So like your muscle mass is so important. I can't like emphasize that enough.
You should really start selling some medical insurance at the gym as well. Together,
Sorry,
selling private medical insurance, so you can jump the queue. And you don't spend so long in hospital.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
It is worth it when it comes down to those things. Like I was saying with like the blood work stuff, I was saying at the start, like actually seeing like, are you deficient in anything? Like, are you showing any signs of things, like being proactive? Because like the NHS is fantastic. It did an amazing job for me when I needed it the most, when my knee went bang. But unless you are in those sorts of situations, like most people day to day, they're not really presenting anything. It's not until we slide into these risk categories that's when they step in. But that, as the budget gets smaller and smaller, we've got more people to service, that risk factor gets smaller and smaller. Like, we've got to be more proactive, which is why people in the US, like the market penetration for gyms in the US is like 30-something%. In the UK, the stats as of the other month was 16.7% of the UK population has a gym membership, and that's if they even attend it. Right? Because we're so reactive rather than proactive. Because if they're not in shape, then their private medical insurance has to step in, and it costs them a lot of money. It's cheaper to be in shape than it is to pay for private medical insurance for a lot of them. That's just the system that they live in. But obviously, we think of the US as a unhealthy nation because of the obesity rates, but almost twice as many people actually have gym memberships, are proactive about their health and fitness than they are in the UK.
I mean, it might be worth mentioning, Jan, that when you are over 60, and I'll put my hand up, you can hammer the NHS to say, look, I want my PSA test, I want my cholesterol retested, I want my vitamin D done. You can get it all done, and it's to do it reasonably regularly, at least once a year, or you get your PSA done. That's it's a key thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like, just being proactive on your health. One of the big things in that Peter Attia book is the like your genetics and what you're actually predisposed to. And so this is obviously like a big tangent in terms of just like longevity and health, but it kind of is all underpinned in that. It was after my mum had some health things go on. My granddad died from a heart attack. My dad had a stroke a couple of years ago. So it's like, okay, what things should I be doing to make sure that I'm not slipping into those risk factors? Where's my cholesterol at? Like my good cholesterol was slightly low, so I need to put some more healthy fats into my diet. Funnily enough, my vitamin D was also like just in the like okay category, but the okay category is like huge. And I still supplement vitamin D, and I walk the dog every day, and it's still not enough. So I need to take more of my vitamin D. Those are like some of the big things, and it's not until you actually go and see those things, then you can just make informed decisions based off data, rather than, oh, I'm feeling a little bit tired. It might be actually down to something. Just being a bit more proactive on it.
I have one more question. Did you say 6 eggs and 2 bits of toast in the morning?
Everyone says this.
That's mental.
Everyone says this. Yeah, 6 eggs.
That's a lot, man. I couldn't eat 6 eggs in the morning. That's crazy.
That a limiting belief there, Jay.
Sorry. So yeah, pointing that finger.
Yeah.
Why do you think he has chicken farmers that are members of the gym?
I did see some eggs for sale on your counter. Then you're selling them, I take it. Yeah.
I hope you're taking plenty of fibre, yeah, and there's no fibre in eggs.
Plenty of fibre, Janet.
Yeah, like no regular.
Don't worry about me.
Well, I can recommend. Oh,
Oh God.
Oh no,
Janet, I meant to send these to you, Janet, didn't I?
you
That's
are
it. I've got some. You try biotics.
right. I'm ready.
Holland and Barrett, and they're not cheap.
And that, well, I'm worth it.
Yeah, but they're good.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, like your gut health and everything is super important. That's why like having variety in your diet is great. Is really important. Like not just eating the same 3 things. Like you need those things that feed your gut. So it might be worth having if you're not doing it. This is where supplementation does come in. Like if you're not getting it from your diet in terms of your food, then that's where supplements come in. It's just like the easier way of doing it. Obviously, not all supplements are created equal, and getting them from like a good source. If you remember, then in the app there's a 10% off code at Health, which is just a good nutrition store. It's online. That's where I get all my stuff from. So they'll do your probiotics and everything else.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any other questions?
No. Tell me,
Oh. No? Your eyes going?
Yeah.
Nodding off. He's not snoring, Janet, in the back of the call.
No, really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
No,
But-
good.
Brain is
Yeah.
full now. It won't take any more.
Good. It's just about like the implementation side of things. It's just like actually starting. That's why that meditations for mortal books it's more around the mindset side of things rather than just telling you, right, this is the importance of eating protein. This is the importance of doing this. Because like we're all like bored of hearing the same things. We all know what we should be doing. Right. But it's actually just starting and having the license to not get it perfect, and that's absolutely fine. We don't get it perfect all the time. Like even Olympic level athletes don't follow their program 100% perfect all the time, right? And they literally get paid and they have nothing else to stress for. Like we all have jobs that we have to work, and we have lives, and we've got to balance this all out and sort of fit it all in. And if we put off starting because we're afraid of it not being perfect, it's just putting up walls, and the only thing we're doing is just kicking the can further down the road, and then it'll become a problem later on rather than now.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll let you all go to bed. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you
Cheers,
very
everyone.
much.
If you've got any other like questions that you didn't want to shoot here, then just shoot us an email, and then we'll either have a call or get back to you on there. Right.
Right.
Lovely.
Nice
Thank
one.
you.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, good night.